Well, thanks for talking to me. I enjoyed season 3. So can you just talk a little bit about sort of where I guess Duncan's at the beginning of the season?
Well, he's planning his wedding. He's going to get married. And that's, at this point, I think in the story, everything's sort of settled down and Tyler's off kind of finding himself, but things have settled down and life is moving on. And I think Duncan's very happy to have Brian back and very happy to be getting married after all the craziness that happened in season 2.
True. Do you think, just kind of your own opinion, do you think that he ever would or will, I guess, tell Brian sort of what happened, I guess, or do you think he just kind of, you don't need to know about it?
I think so. I mean, I don't think that he would say anything unless it became more like, unless he needed to, because I think in reality, telling somebody this, I don't know how somebody would respond. So I feel like Duncan's like, this is my Locke family secret. He has people to talk to it about. He has people that are in on it and they can support each other around it. But I think that he would probably leave Brian out of it just because it's, how would you really explain that to somebody?
Yeah, or how would they believe it? It just is kind of that
Yeah,
it's hard to have a part of yourself, I guess, you can't share, but I get it.
It would be difficult. But again, I think that's just maybe part of being in the Locke family and having that, there's a burden to it. It's obviously really cool, but there is a burden to that gift. And I think that's probably one of the things, being able to share it with everybody.
Yeah. Can you talk about working with Milton?
Yeah, Milton's great. We got along right away when we started working together. And I had also worked with him on Killjoys at a certain point.
Oh, I didn't know.
And yeah, he did a couple scenes in an episode of Killjoys, and we sort of had we were in the same scene together. So that was kind of cool.
Oh, yeah.
And I also spent, I don't know, 5 or 6 hours driving up north once to work on a project. We were in the same project. We weren't in the same scenes, but I spent a whole car ride on the way up with him, and we got along and, talked. And so I'd sort of known him through a little bit through that as well. So great guy, great actor. You don't get to choose who you marry on TV, but I'm really glad that it was Milton.
All right. So do you overall, just all 3 seasons, do you have a favorite scene? Do you think that?
Yeah, there's definitely some favorite scenes. I really enjoyed in the second season the scene where I got my memory back. I thought it was very cathartic, even as an actor, to be able to do that, because I've been playing for so long that I'm, confused and I don't understand what's going on. And then and again, when you're watching a show, it moves along quite quickly, but it was like months and months of being like, okay, every time I come in, I have to be like confused or feeling drained, or so it's a much longer process when you're playing it. So then finally to be like, okay, I get to be in the know, I get to have that moment of realization. I really, really enjoyed that in the writing and of the show, but also to get to play it as an actor. And also I knew that meant that I was going to get to be a bigger part of the adventure, because I knew that I was going to get to go out there and help the kids beat the bad guys, which that's what I want to do.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's probably harder too if you do it out of order, because sometimes he knows and sometimes he doesn't, and
Yeah. I mean, we did shoot in blocks of 2, so they're usually so there's a little bit of that, but yeah, it's not too bad. I'm used to shooting stuff way out of order.
Yeah, that made me wonder though. I'm guessing you probably filmed it last season, but there's a scene in this episode that is like another scene we've seen before. Did you film that back then, or did you like redo this? How did you do that?
Yeah, everybody I think it was one of the last days of filming, and everybody was there that needed to be there because some of the characters were not coming back. So yes, we shot it, I think, right at the very, very end of the second season. And yeah, it was bizarre. It was a really big scene to shoot. There was a big action scene. So everybody was like, oh my God, we have to go back into this thing again and like try and do it again. But it was much, much more controlled, much smaller. So, but I think it's a really fun, fun scene. Really fun. Yeah.
Well, that's cool if you filmed it after. I just thought maybe they filmed it, concurrently. I didn't know. Yeah. What's other than what we just talked about, what kind of has been the hardest thing over the whole course of the 3 seasons?
The weather, to be honest with you. Season 2, we were outside a lot and it was really brutally cold. Originally, I think we were supposed to start shooting in the spring through the summer into the fall, but because of COVID, everything got pushed. So I think they had to readapt a lot of the things that were supposed to be fall, summer and fall into winter things. So it was very, very cold, a lot of outdoor action stuff. But as far as the work itself, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I like, for me anyways, I didn't find anything to be too difficult because I love the genre stuff, and I thought that everything was very well written and laid out, especially for my character. You know, other people might have different takes on that, but I just thoroughly enjoyed the process. But there was a lot of cold days. And I'm from Canada and I still
you're used to it. Was there anything else though, other than like the filming schedule that COVID really kind of screwed up?
Well, I mean, the social aspect of working together and then being able to, you know, sort of do things outside of work, obviously totally got scrapped. You know, we saw each other at work, we did our work thing, and then you go home and you try not to get COVID, and then you come back, you know, like that's literally what it was. So I mean, I thought it was going to be more difficult as far as relating to people and being able to communicate, but surprisingly enough, you get into the flow of things, and the masks and all that stuff are difficult, but it just happens. There were a couple times there was a costumer, one of the guys who worked on set. His name was Andy, super lovely guy. I worked with him for months and months and months and months and never once saw his face. You know, I just, you know,
I think I know what you're going to say.
This, and they had to have like the masks on and then like a folding down mask. And one day it was a really, really late night shoot, one of these cold days, and we'd just come inside to warm up from the scene. And he sort of took off his mask for a second, and I was just like, oh, Andy, like that's what you look like. And I almost cried because I'd known this person for so long, and then just to see, and really enjoyed his, like being around him and spending time with him, and to see his face, and he had such a kind face, like just not that I just didn't know what he was going to look like. So there's weird things like that happened throughout COVID and working that you just normally, you know, you wouldn't have, but also in the social aspect of just not being able to hang out with people outside of work. You're just sort of in work mode the whole time.
I think I had that conversation with somebody. That's why I was laughing, because you kind of, I don't know, in your mind, you see something, I guess, different, not necessarily bad, just different. It's like a shock when you see the person.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing. You do, based on someone's personality and their voice and all these things, you fill out the rest of the details of their face. And when you see it, it's often much different than you would have expected.
Yeah, definitely. So has Duncan taught you anything about yourself?
That's a really interesting question. Well, I don't know. I mean, the one thing that I will say is that I think Duncan is a very, very strong man in like mentally, all the stuff that he had to go through, and he really held it together, barely at some points, but he really did, and he did it gracefully a lot of the time. I think, I mean, obviously towards the end, he was getting a little bit angry at Aaron Voss there in that second season and sort of taking things out on her. But under the circumstances, I think it's understandable. But I just think that I think his patience and his mental sort of fortitude is something that I would wish that I could do. I'm not that, I jump, you know, I'm just not that as patient as I would like sometimes. And I sort of jump to conclusions and that, and I think that he's the opposite of that. He's just was very cool headed a lot of the time and took things in stride. And I think that was a really interesting and fun thing to play, and an admirable quality in a person.
Right. I'm thinking some of that might be the same for this, but just overall for the show, not necessarily the character, but what's sort of your biggest takeaway from working on this? Just sort of what you got out of it.
Well, I mean, much like a lot of the other shows that I really enjoy working on, I love the family element to it. I loved, and obviously there is literally a family element with Locke, but also all the other characters, how they all band together, the Savini squad, all those guys, how, you know, everybody sort of works together in this common goal. And I think those guys are sort of like the found family aspect of it. But I don't know, the shows that I work on and the things that I like, that's usually what it comes down to, are these amazing people working together, and well, characters, but also the
Yeah,
actors and the
yeah.
people that sort of bring it all together. So that's what I would say I enjoyed the most out of it. I really like and really enjoyed my time working with Jackson. Um, he's a kid, and he's a kid growing up on a movie set, and so there's, sometimes there's a ups and downs for him, a bit of a roller
Mhm.
coaster ride. But I thoroughly enjoyed working with him. I think he's like a really talented actor
Mhm.
and a really smart kid. And I shouldn't call him a kid because he's growing up probably pretty quickly. But I actually also really enjoyed working with him. It reminded me of working when I was a kid. I never had such large roles or such impactful roles, but he reminded me a little bit of myself in the sense of, yeah, having to be a professional and people counting on you and having to deliver, and it being sort of difficult for a kid. So I
Mhm.
had a lot of um, sympathy for, what empathy for
Yeah.
what a great job he was and how difficult it is to do as a kid, the expectations. And I think he's just a great guy.
Okay. Now, you may family may be the answer to this too, but I was going to say, what do you want other people to take away from it, like the viewers? What is kind of the one thing that you want people to get from it? Is it that,
Well, I mean,
for
shows
example?
like this, I always want people to have fun, because I think that at the end of the day, that's what,
Yeah.
a little bit of escapism, and some fun. I mean, that's what I like to watch these shows for. And I also hope that by the end of the third season, that people are really happy with the way it ends. I mean, it's always difficult to end a show, and especially when there's like, people could make arguments that you could continue to go on with
Mhm.
this show for another season or so. So I really hope that people, especially fans from beforehand of the source material, enjoyed the ride and are happy with how it ends, because I think it's a great show, and yeah, just lovely people to work with, and a great show to be part of.
I was just going to say, because probably people are going to ask us down the road if they wanted to come back and make some more. Would you be down for that, or do you think?
Always,
All right.
always. Pretty much any project, most projects that I've enjoyed, and I've been very lucky to work on some great ones.
Warehouse 13.
Yeah, totally. Let's do a movie.
I would like that a lot.
Yeah, I think there's lots of people that would. It's been
Yeah.
enough time now that maybe,
That
you
would
never
be
know.
awesome. So
Yeah.
was there anything physically that you took or were given from the set kind of to remember the show
Um,
from? Did you get any keys or
Yeah, I did get some keys at the beginning of the year. We got from season 2, we got the chain key. A company had made some chain keys, so we got one of those. I always collect the chair backs from the shows that I'm on for like the director's chairs.
yeah.
So it's a beautiful lock and key
Oh, that's cool.
background with Duncan Locke on it. That's sort of, it's really easy to keep. Sometimes
Yeah,
getting
can
props and
roll it
stuff
up.
can be difficult. Yeah, and they just tuck away, but it's that's sort of the easiest thing. And I've gotten props from shows a lot of times, but a lot of times they're expensive, or they're going to archive them or auction them off or whatever. So I for sure always go for the chair backs. And but I think that's what I took. I'm trying to think if I don't think I got anything else. And it's just such a shame. The house was such a beautiful set, to think that it's just getting trashed, and eventually they just get taken apart. It's such a bummer, but
That's right. I forgot that it was a set and wasn't wasn't somebody's
not
house.
a
You
real
tend to
house.
forget that.
No. Yeah, and the exterior was built on one location somewhere, and the inside of the house was on the studio. So to see it go is just, it was a bit sad, but
Yeah.
it always happens.
Well, do you have I mean obviously SkyMed, we talked a little bit about that last time, but do you have any other yeah, I know I saw that you're filming right now. Well, you can talk a little bit about that, but also anything else that you have kind of coming up or
Yeah.
that.
Well, SkyMed is um well, I think it's streaming in the States and in Canada, but it's also airing on CBC in Canada. So every week the episodes are coming out, and I think there's a few more to go. I really hope we get a second season. I thoroughly enjoyed working on it. Very different from a lot of the other shows that I work on, a little more sort of procedural,
Yeah.
grounded in real world. Although, I mean, grounded a little bit, but also, a lot of hot young people running around having fun in the north, hooking up with each other. I guess
Yeah,
that is kind of
it's a
realistic.
good show. I haven't seen it all yet. I do have to watch the rest of it, but I've seen some.
Yeah, it's fun if you like medical stuff, and there's a little bit of a soap kind of like relationship things like going on. It's like a little Grey's Anatomy type sort of thing with it's the medical stuff and the relationships. That's sort of what I think of in a way, that type of formula of a show. Also, I did a bunch of episodes of a show called Ginny and Georgia, which is another Netflix show.
Oh.
That I don't know when that's coming out, but I think that'll probably be. I've heard just rumors that probably sometime in the late 2022. And I did an episode recently of a show called Accused, which is a new show on Fox, and it's sort of like a crime anthology series, sort of where every episode it's sort of like a different case and different characters, and it all sort of revolves around sort of morally ambiguous sort of stories, or at least the one I was in. It's like who's right and who's wrong, and it's not quite so cut and dry. Different people will obviously see it one way or the other.
Yeah.
I think that's sort of the interesting thing, and it was really cool because I got to work with Marlee Matlin. She was directing it. Yeah, and she knew Amelia very, very well from Locke Key because they did Coda together. So that was a really nice connection. And it was a really interesting project to work on because obviously Marlee is deaf and the storyline revolved around that. So there was a lot of deaf actors, and really interesting to go through the process of making a TV show where it's difficult to communicate with people. I mean, it was amazing. We had a lot of translators that were with us at all times, and it went really, really smoothly, but it was a very interesting way to work. And yeah, I'm really, really glad I got the opportunity to do it.
Very cool. All right. Well, it's been 50 minutes. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I'm sure we'll talk again soon at some point.
I hope so. All the best.
All right. Have a good day.
Okay, bye. See
Bye
ya.
bye. Bye bye.